conference, we are going to do two things. We are going to listen to 3 active duty U.S. military members, an Israeli Defense Force veteran, and a former Hamas member tell their own stories of why they decided to stop participating in war and work for peace. Now, many of us are coming together to support this, and this is organized by Veterans for Peace, the Center on Conscientious and War, Fellowship of Reconciliation, and Red Letter Christians. So we are going to put in the chat any organizations that are here that you'd like to connect with further, and also where you can get this live stream when it's recorded. So we're going to hear from our active duty service members and soldiers why they're speaking out, and then we're going to allow them to field questions. And lastly, we're going to connect soldiers or military members with their tools to exercise their right of redress to tell Congress to stop the genocide in Gaza. So I'm going to introduce to you James Branham, and he will briefly describe what the Appeal for Redress is and how he supports GI rights.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here today. I'm very honored to get to participate in this. I am a civilian attorney who defends service members in the military system of justice, and also I do represent conscientious objectors and war resistors of all kinds. Today, though, I'm here to give just a very extremely brief legal introduction, because the Appeal for Redress version 2 was created for a very simple but urgent purpose: to provide a lawful means for service members to speak out about their views on the war in Gaza. We really need to hear from the service members. They are the ones that may be called upon to take action, so we need to hear their voices. It's very important. The legal grounds for this are based on 3 places: the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the right to petition Congress; secondly, federal statute at 10 U.S.C. 1034; and finally, DoD Instruction 1325.06. And I will put links to each of these in just a moment in the chat. But encourage you, particularly for reporters today, take a look at those links. See for yourself that the right of service members to speak to Congress is protected. It is lawful, and it is within their rights to do. I'm also here, though, for a second purpose, and that is to mention that our active duty participants today are speaking on their own behalf. They are not speaking on behalf of their military branch, the U.S. Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. This is very important, and I encourage, again, for the reporters here, if you're covering this, please mention that if at all possible in your story, that these members are speaking on their own behalf. That's very important from a legal standpoint. So I'll put those links in the chat, and thank you.
Thank you so much for offering your support for service members. So we're going to go directly to our very first conscientious objector. Her name is Sophia Orr. She spent 85 days in an Israeli military jail for refusing to join the Israeli Defense Force. She was granted conscientious objector status and was just released in June. So Sophia, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Sophia Orr. I'm 19 years old from Israel. And around 2 months ago, I got released from military prison after I stayed 85 days there for my political and conscientious objection to enlist in the IDF. I made that decision when I was around 14 years old, so pretty long time ago. Of course, that stems from the fact that military service is mandatory in Israel, and you think about it from a very, very young age. And I made that decision because I refused to take part in occupation and apartheid regimes that Israel is enacting upon the Palestinians for decades, and now also because of the war and massacre in Gaza. I chose to refuse because there is no military solution to a political problem, and that now with the war has become more apparent than ever, with a war that is both unproductive and extremely immoral, and it leads us only to worse and worse places for everyone living here. But I felt that it wasn't enough to just not serve in the army. It wasn't enough to just say no. I had to do it publicly. So I chose to make that refusal public and try and use it as an act to promote messages of peace and coexistence and Palestinian liberty and for a brighter future for everyone here. I could not stay complicit any more than I could anything else. And in my time in prison, I learned very up close and personal what kind of system is the military and the way that it treats people, and it dehumanizes all the people it comes in contact with, even the soldiers serving in it. It systematically tries to solve problems with force and quick fixes instead of getting to the root of problems. And I met people there who were hurt very deeply by that kind of thinking and that kind of action. They got treated not as a person with a problem, but as a problem. And that is very apparent in the way that the IDF not only treats its own soldiers, but that is the root of the way that it tries to manage the conflict for years and years, the way that it now rages horrible war and violence, and the way that it treats Palestinians on an everyday basis. And it became important for me and very apparent in prison how important is taking political action and how important it is inside all of this to stay humane and empathetic, to never dehumanize anyone, and to always try and use critical and complex thinking about the situation and not fall into any black and white kind of thinking that we see used so much around this conflict. I think that more than anything, I learned in prison and in my act of refusal, the power of saying no and to using that no as a way to advocate for a future, for a brighter future. And it's encouraging to me and to the people in my movement to see that this power, people are learning it also in the USA, and understanding that the support that the USA is offering Israel again and again will never lead to anything good, and it will only damage the future of everyone living from the river to the sea. So I'm happy that what is happening here can also happen outside of it. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Sophia. It is so powerful to hear your story, and at 14 and what you've decided to do. Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce Alik El-Hanan, a former IDF Special Forces. He served West Bank in Gaza. When his 14-year-old sister was killed by a suicide bomber in Jerusalem, he joined Courage to Refuse and co-founded the Israeli-Palestinian group Combatants for Peace. Alik, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and it is my pleasure and honor to support this important initiative. I would like to thank Sophia and salute both her courage and intelligence. I'm afraid that I wasn't neither this smart nor that courageous when I was 18. As Sophia said, military service in Israel is mandatory, and I did mine when I was 18, among other reasons, because I believe that this was a ticket to having your voice heard and being in a position of influence in Israeli society. In Israel, very much like in the United States, military pedigree is very much appreciated when you go into public life. The whole logic behind the creation of Courage to Refuse and later on Combatants for Peace was based on the kind of gravitas, on the weight that this military experience has in our respective societies. We came to understand that this experience is respected, this experience is receives important capital only when we support the goals of the government and the continuation of war. When we speak out from our experience against war, against violence, against the endless continuation of the conflict, we are being sidelined, dismissed, discharged, and discredited. It's exactly for this reason that we created that we refused, and then created Courage to Refuse, and later on Combatants for peace to provide a platform for these voices to provide an oppositional perspective, an insider oppositional perspective. I mean, as we've heard from Diana, and I'm sure that we'll hear from other people here again, the realities of the service often teach us many things about our ideals and their relation to reality. The continuation of violence, the manner in which violence only breeds more violence, the manner in which the very military system, the hierarchical nature of the system dehumanizes people, both the enemy, but also the very members who participate in this system, and having a platform to air these opinions and to air these grievances, to give them a place in public sphere is most important. So for that, I salute this project of Redress, and I am honored to support it. I would like to share from my experience, and I do that through every platform as a member of Combatants for Peace, as a board member of the American Friends of Combatants for Peace. As a soldier, what I learned is that the way of violence produces only violence. However, the way of non-violence, the way of solidarity, the way of joint struggle against the occupation and against injustice really gave me, and I know many of my comrades and fellow members in the group, a sense of a future, a sense of hope, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of joint mission and direction, exactly the thing that military life was supposed to give us, but never did. The values promoted are real, the camaraderie, the friendship, the joint horizon. However, they cannot exist within the military system, which very often serves very narrow political interests and not those of humanity. I found these values alive for me in the nonviolent resistance, in the joint struggle against the occupation together with my Palestinian brothers. And it is my honor to represent Combatants for Peace and the American Friends of Combatants for Peace here in support of the rights of American servicemen to have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hey, like you packed in so much wisdom and power and truth in such a short amount of time. Like, thank you. We are so honored for your life and for your voice. I'd like to introduce Ahmed Alo, former Hamas youth member who refused to be enemies with Israelis and joined Combatants for Peace. Him and his wife have lost over 80 family members since the war in Gaza began. Ahmed, welcome.
Thank you so much to have me with you at this meeting. Yes, I'm ex-Hamas member in the first Intifada in 1997, and I stay 7 months in the Israeli jail. Because of that, I'm from parents born in the historical Palestine in Beersheba before 48, and they escaped to Jericho. So I'm a refugee, Palestinian refugee guy. I'm my roots from Gaza. Through the conflict, I lost a lot of relatives, members in Gaza, and in the last in this war, just I lost around 80 members too. Most of them they are children, women, boys. I'm a member in Combatants for the Peace. Start my active with them in 2012. Really, because I started to believe in nonviolence when I was in a jail. I get this chance to be understanding the situation and understanding the the future needs to. Also, when the Oslo Agreement started, I got a lot of knowledge about the future and became optimist with negotiation. Because of that, also I was working with Dr. Saber Rikat as a parliament assistant, who was the head of the negotiation effort of the Palestinian side. He passed away in the Corona time. So I was working with him around 20 years ago as a parliament assistant. I'm now working in the Palestinian Legislative Council. I'm so glad that I'm a member in competence for this that give me a chance to continue my struggle against the occupation, but in the different way, in non-violence way, and met a great, super great friends and super great people in the other part, let me say it, or other side, which I call it, it's my second family. With they are the Israelis or Jewish people, because they give me a lot of knowledge how the life look like with a good relationship between each other, and also give me a lot of support when I lost my family or my relatives in Gaza. In combatants for peace, we are ex-Palestinian prisoners and ex-Israeli soldiers. We agree to continue our struggle against the occupation in non-violence, and to against also the conflict, not just the occupation. And we agree to end this conflict and build a good relationship and build to the future to all of us, both of us in this land. We love this land. Both of us love this land, and we continue to create it a good future to ourselves and our generation too. In this war, we lost a lot, both of us. In this war, we are victims, both of us. In this war, we lost a lot of humanities, a lot of values, a lot of rights, but because we believe in our future, we continue. Because we believe for the end of this war, and we will win. We are the Palestinian and Israelis believe in non-violence, and we believe in the future. They will win. We continue in that. Thank you again. And yeah.
Ahmed, thank you so much. That is not easy to share or to believe, but thank you for giving us hope. And we are with you in your grief and your loss. I'd like to introduce Larry Aber. He's an active duty airman who took leave from his duty station in Spain to stand in front of the U.S. Capitol wearing a sign that said, "Airman refuses to eat while Gaza starves." Aber is an inspiration for all of us, and especially as he noted that Aaron Bushnell was his inspiration. And so as a soldier, thank you for standing there. Larry, I'm just really grateful for you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, my motivations for going to the EC and actually speaking out, as you said, was because of Aaron Bushnell. I had thought that the structure and the society that we had was one that was moral and stood on their beliefs and was firm by them. And I thought our force was something honorable and something that I was, kind of proud to be a part of, even though I felt like I only joined because of my financial reasons. But when Aaron Bushnell self-immolated and passed, and there was a lack of response from our government and from leaders within the military, I realized that the people around me weren't as, I guess, honorable as I had thought. The structure that we have set up has a lot of issues, and it was really a wake up call. And prior to that, I thought I was just going to ride out my time and get out, because there was no way that I could support what was happening in Gaza at that time, and is still going on today. And I realized that what Aaron Bushnell did was essentially just, like I said, a wake up call, and it got me to act. And then going to DC and meeting Palestinians and Israelis and getting to hear their perspectives, and getting to meet veterans from previous wars, Vietnam and Iraq, and getting to hear from them that I'm kind of following in the footsteps of these previous conscientious objectors and anti-war activists, was really inspiring and kind of reaffirmed my beliefs. I was kind of on edge of my own morals because of the culture that you're really in when you're in the military. Nobody really spoke about Gaza and the atrocities that were happening, and nobody seemed to have the moral courage to speak up. And even today, that's still an issue. So I think that the appeal for redress is going to give those people that at least have the morals an avenue to speak out and take advantage of that opportunity. And it's not, there's no like illegal nature behind it, right? It's our right to speak out and use our First Amendment rights. One of the things that I think is extremely important to address too about this culture is that I've had conversations candidly with peers and superiors and with politicians within Congress. And one of the things that really irks me is when I bring up the breaking of international humanitarian rights and breaking our own laws, like the Leahy Law. And one of the most common responses I get to the United States breaking law by supporting Israel's genocide in Gaza is that they say, well, who's going to stop us? Who's going to hold us accountable, right? Because they're coming from a place of immorality. They're coming from a place of confidence that they have a gigantic force, one of probably the strongest military in the world. Who's going to stop them? And obviously the United States is backed and in coalition with NATO. So that's the framework of where they're coming from. They know what they're doing is wrong. They know what they're doing is immoral and evil in nature, and yet they're willing to still accomplish this because that is not a priority for them. They're willing to take advantage of other people in other countries and do what they have to do to obtain more resources for themselves.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that, because for so many who took the oath, the Army core value of integrity is to not do anything that is legally or morally wrong. And so soldiers are being the compass and they're being the conscience. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to introduce Juan Betancourt, who's a senior airman. He is a conscientious objector. And he says, as service members with a shred of moral decency left in us, we adamantly refuse to be accomplices in this genocide. Welcome, Juan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. 313 days and the death toll is appalling. 40,000 innocent lives brutally taken, the majority women and children, 70,000 tons of bombs. Excruciating reports estimate a devastating total of 186,000 deaths, with almost 93,000 more suffering from severe injuries. Accounts of rampant sexual violence, brutal executions, torture, starvation, pestilence, and countless war crimes saturate every media platform except the mainstream outlets, which are all too preoccupied with promoting empire, capital, and further adventurism. Meanwhile, our government, Israel's chief patron in these atrocities, the so-called indispensable nation, maintains a callous disregard for the plight of Palestinians and the desperate appeals from millions across the globe for lasting peace and justice. As conscientious objectors, as advocates for peace and human rights, as service members with a shred of moral decency left in us, we adamantly refuse to be accessories in this carnage. Our voice is a powerful instrument, and it is our responsibility to humanity and the principles we hold dear to speak up against these heinous acts and make it known to our elected officials that we will not stand by silently while genocide unfolds. We refuse to be complicit. We demand an immediate, unilateral ceasefire and the cessation of all weapon transfer to the reprehensible state of Israel. Rest in power, Aaron Bushnell, free Palestine, and power to the people. Thank you.
Juan, that is powerfully said. And thank you for naming what you did. We need to hear that. Our last soldier we're going to introduce before we offer people up to have questions is Joy Metzler. She's a second lieutenant in the Air Force, and she is a conscientious objector because she believes calling for a ceasefire and an end to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is her responsibility. Thank you, Joy, for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm a 2023 United States Air Force Academy graduate, and I'm currently a second lieutenant, first assignment in graduate school at Georgia. And my time at the United States Air Force Academy, I not only learned about ethics and just conduct in warfare, I was graded on it. They were classes, mandatory classes that all of us had to take. And I remember sitting in a classroom and thinking, this is the most obvious stuff in the entire world. Why do we have to learn about this? When I graduated, I thought, the academy taught us that we're war fighters, that we are in the profession of arms. Our occupation is waging war. I left the academy thinking that I was going to be at the forefront of this great struggle in freedom, that I was going to be part of the leaders in one of the greatest countries in the world, bringing peace, prosperity, and happiness to everybody. But from the comfort of my own living room, every single day, there are new atrocities being committed against the people in Gaza, against Palestinians. Every single day, I see something new, something horrific, and it felt like all of those things I had learned at the academy were just unraveling right in front of my eyes as I watched my own government aid and abet this humanitarian crisis going on overseas. I didn't know what to do at that point. I was active duty. I still had a lot of these ideas from the Air Force. There was a very strong military mindset built into me from my 4 years there. definitely some sort of desensitization where we get taught about war. We get taught how to wage it. We get taught what our role is in it. We don't get taught very well about the consequences of war. We don't see it unfolding in front of our eyes like we can now. But when I saw all that, I understood that war only leads to more war. Military strength will do what it was designed to do, and that is to kill and destroy in the most efficient and effective ways possible. And I cannot be a part of that. I'm Christian. I was raised in a Christian household. My faith is very important to me. I don't understand how I can continue to call myself a believer if I am also being part of this war machine, if I'm also part of this entity that is contributing to the deaths of innocent people in some of the most horrendous ways to die. The reason I'm here today, and I thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with people who also inspired me on my journey to conscientious objection. The reason I'm here is because I want to imagine a world where our children, Palestinian children, Israeli children, can grow up without having to learn that war is an inevitability. I believe that we, all of us, can stand up and say, no, war is not an inevitability. We don't have to accept war in our world today. We can all accept peace. We can all accept talking to each other, diplomacy. We don't have to accept the reality that we are living in right now. And I want to call on every active duty member as well. I know how difficult breaking out of the Air Force Academy mindset can be. I've done it myself. It took a very long time, but you don't have to be a conscientious objector in order to, you don't have to go all the way in order to express your discontent with this situation. You can write to your congressmen. You can use your freedom of speech. You can sign the redress for appeal. That's a very great way of getting your voice out there if you still want to stay in the military. I'm not saying that everybody has to get out right away, but I am saying that as a member of the military, you have a responsibility to say something, because our role in the military, we should be protectors, but that's not what we are right now. We right now are the oppressors. And I encourage everyone currently active duty to think about that. And thank you again for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
Reading ID followed by pound.
Joy, I'm a little speechless because that is so powerful. And thank you for your challenge. And I know that to any military member right now that you're hearing this, and you probably have, you know it's wrong, but you don't know what to do. And the military is very committed to silencing any questioning of it. So I just want to reiterate what Joy said, is that you have a voice and you don't have to wait to speak up. You can speak now. I wore a sign around town for a week after Aaron Bushnell died, and I couldn't take it off. And I wore my uniform and a big sign everywhere I went. So you can wear a sign, you can write to Congress, you can apply to be a conscientious objector, but your voice matters and your service matters, and do not give it up when we are harming people instead of protecting them. So I'm grateful for everybody here, and there's a lot that I know that we can do. So we're going to open it up to press who would like to ask questions for any of our participants today. So if you want to ask a question in your press, please put it in the chat and we can call on you. And while we're waiting for that, we will have each of our sponsoring organizations give a very brief introduction to why they are sponsoring this. So we'll start with Veterans for Peace, Mike Ferner.
Thank you, Diana, and to everyone who made time to be here today. I was discharged from the Navy in 1973 as a conscientious objector after working in a hospital and taking care of guys who came back from Vietnam. And I know how very difficult that is to get out of the military as a CO. So congratulations and thank you to all the U.S. active duty CO applicants and to our brothers and sisters from Palestine and Israel who have taken similar steps. Veterans for Peace it has been around for almost 40 years. Next year is our 40th anniversary. We have a little over 100 chapters around the country, and our bottom line goal is to abolish war as an instrument of national policy. Our members are united on that, even though we have various positions on other related issues. This is one of the most important things that we can do, is to bring the voices of genuine peace seekers who have turned away from violence to the public. And thank all of you for being involved with this.
Thank you so much. And then I'd like to go to Ariel Gold, the Director of Fellowship of Reconciliation. Well, if Ariel's not here, we're going to take a question from Zane with KPFA News in Berkeley. There you are.
Can you hear me? Thanks, Diana. Hi, everybody. My name is Iqbal. I'm with KPFA News in Berkeley. And this question came about from hearing Joy speak, but I'd love to hear from anyone who is interested in responding to this. And specifically, I'll ask this to Joy, but if Larry or if anyone else wants to chime in, I'm curious just to expand upon how you've chatted with what the reactions have been from chatting with your fellow servicemen, service persons, or officers on these issues. Like, have you reached out to the comrades in your cadre, and what have been sort of the varying reactions to what you're trying to do, to what you're trying to accomplish for these are really important messages, right? Have you had like agreements? Have you had pushback? What are sort of the general reactions? We're trying to get a sense from your colleagues.
Right, so where I am right now, I don't make a lot of daily contact with officers at all, or really active duty airmen at all. From the couple conversations I have had, and from what I've seen just social media activity, that's kind of how I gauge where a lot of my peers are. There's a few people who've been doing what I do. Sometimes they'll share a post, they'll say, hey, just remember this thing's going on overseas. Most times people are excited about their new jobs. They're excited to go. They soloed in a plane for the first time. It's great. They're having fun with their friends. And I think that in me, that's just created, not necessarily that I'm feeling any kind of heat from anybody. I don't feel any kind of conflict, but I do feel a kind of dissonance just from knowing that people, my peers, people who've gone through the same training as me, just don't seem to be thinking about this, either because they don't want to, or they don't see an issue with it, or they don't understand, maybe they don't understand it the same way as I do, what our connection to it is. And I think it goes a little bit deeper for us as military members, because ultimately we are the enforcement arm of our government in foreign policy. And considering that we personally do not have boots on the ground, I think that can create a bit of a disconnect for a lot of people. And I fear that it's going to take a lot more for a lot more of our military members to kind of understand the bigger picture of what's going on here. But that's why I'm, again, grateful for things like the repeal for Redress for military members to be able to, maybe not go marching in the streets, but they can get their voice out there. And I'm also grateful for the community of veterans and active duty service members who I know are going out. And I feel that these are my peers more so than anybody who's close to my rank right now, just because we see these things in a very similar way. So I would say that's how I've kind of had interactions with people, officers in the officer corps so far.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And then we're going to answer a question from Chris Lombardi. He would like to know more about Combatants for Peace. So I think I will bring that one to you, Alec, since you co-founded it.
What is specific? Okay, very generally, and yeah, Ahmed would definitely help me with this question, talking a little bit about the Palestinian side. But basically, Combatants for Peace is an Israeli-Palestinian movement that was founded in 2005 as a response to kind of the stalemate and the violence, the stalemate in the negotiations and the violence that dominated our lives after the second Intifada. And we believe that since the voice of combatants is so important in the respective societies, maybe when we speak about our joint mission, joint resistance, and joint future, people might listen. Things didn't develop as we expected. We planned on doing one media event and causing a lot of noise and then moving on with our lives. It didn't make a lot of noise, but we didn't move on with our lives. The movement is there 20 years later, and in many ways is kind of the largest and most active Israeli-Palestinian solidarity group around. We mainly tell our story, engage in dialogue and advocacy meeting. We do a lot of direct action on the ground in support of Palestinian struggle and in protection of Palestinian villagers, shepherds, etc. In particular, we can talk about, and maybe Ahmed will talk about this much better, about our presence in Beit Jala now, resisting the criminal and murderous land grab that takes place in the West Bank and is not heard about amid all the thunders of the massacre in Gaza. Our main events promoting our joint message is that the pain is joint, the loss is joint, and the hope and the future has to be joint. We promote this through events such as the Alternative Memorial Day ceremony, which we hold on the day of the Israeli Memorial Day, where we commemorate all those who were killed, not only the Israeli soldiers. We commemorate the Nakba Day ceremony to highlight the Palestinian loss and to make it resonant among Israeli participants, and again demonstrate that we are united in our pain and in our hopes. There's a whole host of activities, there's a whole host of initiatives we take place in, but basically I would say what we do in Combatants for Peace, we outline the future of Israel and Palestine. We don't have a defined end goal in our mission program, how exactly the conflict will end, but what we do on everyday basis, we learn and we develop the language of fighting together, struggling together against the occupation and against injustice, trying to find a language that would allow us to live together in conditions of equality and justice amid all these difficulties and heartbreak. I am very grateful to Ahmed for his testimony here. I am very proud that we were able to stand by his side in his terrible loss. I mean, I lost my sister to a Hamas suicide attack before joining Combatants for Peace. Our founding member, Bassam Aramin, lost his daughter at the hand of Israeli police in 2006. I think it's these moments that show us how valuable the movement is, how valuable what we're trying to create is that in these moments of complete destruction and loss, we don't retreat, we don't circle the wagons and retreat into our own to defend ourselves with violence, but we go to the other, to the former enemy, to the person who can give us our humanity, and this is where we find support and courage and hope to go on struggling. And in reply to the question, yes, I mean, we are connected with Breaking the Silence. It's not exactly the same organization, not exactly the same agenda, but of course, how should I say, the constituency kind of overlaps. Many of our people have relations to Breaking the Silence or were formerly involved with them, etc. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alec. We are going to wrap up this press conference. We're going to have Bill Galvin tell us a little bit about his organization, and then we are going to end.
The Center on Conscience and War was founded by churches back in 1940 to protect the rights of conscientious objectors. And we've been at it ever since. And just this past week, we've had 7 people who've never been in touch with us before, active duty military personnel, reach out to us inquiring about getting discharged as conscientious objectors. And every one of them has said watching what's going on in Gaza right now is something that really caused them to struggle with their conscience and have to think about what they were doing. And some of them have said that they feel complicit in what's happening because of the job they're doing in the military. And so that's why we are supporting the appeal for redress. This is a very important opportunity for folks in the military to speak out. And we certainly want to support them and want to make sure anybody knows that if anybody in the military can apply to be a conscientious objector, and we'd be happy to help you.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much for everybody who came today. We continue to support conscientious objectors. We continue to support nonviolence as the uniter and the thing that's going to give us a future. And for anyone in the military, you have a right to use your conscience. And in fact, I believe we need you to do that. So I'm Diana Ostreich from Red Letter Christians. Also, I think Mike Ferner called me an anarchist CO because I just took the bullets out of my weapon in Iraq and I didn't ask permission. So I just want everyone to know you have the right to refuse to kill, and nobody gives that right to you. It is yours. So we have resources. If you need any support, they're in the chat, and please reach out to us. Thank you all for coming. See you later.